Welcome to the debate. Before we jump into today's topic, just a quick word. If you enjoyed this kind of deep dive, please do check out Mind Expansion Daily for more great information like this. Take a second to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. And hey, if you find this valuable, there's a link in the description where you can buy us a coffee. It really helps support what we do here. Okay, so today we're delving into a pretty profound and often contentious question about the evolution of Black fraternities. Specifically, have these historically vital organizations perhaps shifted away from their foundational activist spirit, maybe towards imitating, well, white elitism? Our discussion today is grounded in some really detailed source material, tracing their history and the modern challenges they face.
I'll be arguing that while, yes, Black fraternities face contemporary pressures, they largely maintain their core principles of service, scholarship, and empowerment. They're adapting, really, to ensure they remain relevant.
And I'll be presenting the perspective that these organizations have perhaps to a significant extent drifted towards a kind of exclusivity and elitism. And that this drift, well, it potentially compromises their original, very important mission by adopting elements of the systems they were actually formed to resist.
Right. So to start, we need to understand the foundation. Black fraternities, many part of the Divine Nine under the National Panhellenic Council, were founded in the early 20th century. And this wasn't just for social reasons. It was out of profound necessity. Think about Alpha Phi Alpha at Cornell in 1906, Kappa Alpha Pi in Indiana in 1911, Omega Psi Phi at Howard, also 1911. The source material, drawing on work like Professor Kendi's, makes it clear these were established during the Jim Crow era, a time of rampant discrimination, especially in predominantly white institutions. They weren't just clubs, they were literal lifelines. They fostered brotherhood, academic excellence, leadership, networking, mentorship, really propelling members towards success in a hostile environment. And their impact, it extended powerfully into the civil rights movement. The material really underscores their role as engines of change. You have figures like Dr. Ting, Thurgood Marshall, Jesse Jackson, all crediting their fraternities with shaping their paths through, community service, voter registration, advocacy, and even today, drawing from research like Professor Davis's work, many chapters maintain really robust community service and scholarship programs. Achieving a certain status, even an elite status, I'd argue, can itself be a form of resistance, succeeding despite systems designed for failure.
Okay, and I absolutely acknowledge that vital history. It's undeniable. Their founding was a necessary, crucial response to hostile environments. They provided essential support. They fostered leadership, no question. However, my concern, and it's a concern reflected in historical critiques mentioned in our sources, lies in what feels like a growing shift. While we honor that past, there's this troubling trend where some Black fraternities seem increasingly focused on social status, on wealth, maybe over those founding principles. And in doing so, they inadvertently start mirroring the very systems they were set up to challenge. Let's consider the financial barriers. Dr. Ross's work, The Divine Nine, points this out clearly. Annual membership fees, dues, they can run from hundreds into thousands of dollars. And that's before you even account for, specific attire, travel for conventions, participating in sometimes very lavish events. This can create what one study calls a de facto class system, right? Where maybe only more affluent students can fully participate. And that risks alienating the very students who might benefit most from that supportive network. Then there's the emphasis on, luxury and appearances. It gets amplified, of course, by social media. You see the lavish events, the designer gear, the high-end cars. And sometimes it feels, frankly, performative rather than substantive, overshadowing the real work and service in academics. And look, these aren't exactly new critiques. A study cited from way back in 1973 already identified a tendency towards fostering a committed elite, maybe mirroring white social structures. By the 80s and 90s, accusations of divisiveness, of elitism, they surged. Plus, you have these persistent internal issues, things like colorism, classism, within chapters which unfortunately can reflect internalized biases, feeding that perception of them being insular clubs rather than inclusive brotherhoods.
I understand the force of that argument, especially regarding financial barriers and the risk of exclusivity. I do. However, I would frame those financial contributions differently. Yes, they're significant, but I see them as, well, absolutely essential for the long-term sustainability and the sheer impact these organizations strive for. The funds, as detailed in works like Professor Angela Davis's on Black Greek life, they aren't just for show, not primarily. They directly fuel a pretty extensive national infrastructure. They support widespread community service, provide critical scholarships, really critical for deserving students, and they enable the networking and professional development that's just invaluable for members, particularly for Black students still navigating systemic barriers. So, what might look like a barrier, if you look at the source material context, is often presented as an investment in a powerful, lifelong network, and the collective ability to actually make change happen. These aren't small local clubs. They're complex, national organizations with serious missions. And those missions, well, they need substantial resources to operate effectively, to provide tangible benefits across the country.
That's a fair point about investment for national scope. But I still find it difficult to fully reconcile the current financial model with those inclusive supportive origins. If, as Dr. Park's 2010 study suggests, these costs create a de facto class system where maybe only those from more affluent backgrounds can realistically participate fully, isn't that very barrier, that financial hurdle, a direct contradiction of the original promise, the idea of being a lifeline? It seems to reinforce hierarchies based on economic standing, which, directly mirrors those white elitist structures where access has always been gated by wealth, by connections. For many potential members, the cost becomes, well, insurmountable. And that makes the network inherently exclusive rather than broadly empowering. That financial exclusivity, as our source material often points out, feels like a significant departure from their anti-discriminatory roots.
Your point about the potential for financial exclusion is certainly something these organizations grapple with, no doubt. But I think it might sometimes overlook a critical aspect of how they project influence and achieve their goals, which brings us to public image and performance. Now, while some social media displays might indeed seem extravagant, I believe we need to view this in a perhaps broader strategic context. As Dr. Vance's 2018 study on Black Greek life suggests, showcasing success, highlighting high-profile alumni, displaying accomplishments, this is a modern form of branding, it's inspiration. In our digital age, it absolutely helps attract new members. It demonstrates the power, the influence of Black Greek life, and ultimately that can further the organization's goals, its reach. The pursuit of what looks like elite status can actually be a strategic form of resistance. It's achievement within a challenging society, actively countering negative stereotypes, demonstrating Black excellence. It's about showing what is possible, often within structures designed to limit Black advancement. Not just, performing for performance's sake.
I'm just not fully convinced that prioritizing spectacle over substance truly aligns with core values. Even framed as strategic resistance, the source material itself highlights examples, right? Like those opulent probate events. There was that Omega Pi Phi incident back in 2017, the luxury cars, the extravagant displays. It drew significant backlash, even from their own alumni and students. People felt it was insensitive, especially given the economic disparities within the Black community. Dr. Carla Stokes' analysis points this out, too. This emphasis, often seen on social media, on viral step performances and branded merchandise. It risks prioritizing the outward show over genuine community work, over academic focus. It can create what Dr. Mark Lamont Hill called the fallacy of the Black Greek, where the projected image doesn't always match the substantive reality on the ground. This kind of performative luxury, far from being resistance, could actually alienate people. It might create a gap between the organization and the very community it aims to serve, potentially undermining its credibility, its mission to uplift.
Okay, those internal challenges you're raising now, colorism, hazing scandals, they're undeniably serious. And the source material documents extensively how these have been subjects of ongoing, often painful debate within Black Greek life for centuries, really. These are not minor issues, I absolutely agree. However, I think the very existence of these critiques
and the subsequent reevaluation and actions like the initiatives focusing on community outreach and mentorship that sometimes arise after incidents like that Omega display, that demonstrates an internal commitment, a commitment to addressing these problems, to realigning with core principles. These aren't necessarily signs of abandoning the mission. They could be seen as part of an internal process of continuous improvement and adaptation. Institutions, especially ones with such deep history and wide reach, are inherently complex. They're imperfect. But their capacity for self-correction, for internal dialogue, something highlighted in research like Dr. Kinbro's, I see that as a testament to their enduring commitment to their mission, not necessarily a definitive shift towards just mimicking white elitism.
That's an interesting way to frame it, the self-correction aspect. But I might interpret it differently. While, yes, internal debate and efforts to correct are positive steps, the persistence of issues like colorism, where maybe lighter-skinned or wealthier members gain more prominence, or these hazing scandals involving, frankly, rigorous, sometimes dangerous processes that reinforce hierarchies and exclusivity, these seem to fundamentally betray the founding principles: brotherhood, mutual uplift. Professor Gregory Park's work on hazing really demonstrates these aren't just minor flaws. They can be core systemic issues. They lead to divisiveness, they create barriers within the Black community, hindering broader unity. They risk fostering an environment of insularity, not inclusivity, making these groups appear, as some critics cited in our material note, more like insular clubs that might even replicate internalized biases, rather than the inclusive brotherhoods they were intended to be. The fact that these issues keep recurring, despite, as you say, centuries of debate and some corrective measures, suggests maybe a deeper, more entrenched problem that fundamentally compromises the mission.
So, to summarize my perspective, while Black fraternities absolutely navigate the complexities of modern society, financial pressures, social media's influence, internal challenges, their deep historical roots in advocacy, in scholarship, in community service, they remain strong, robust. Many chapters continue to actively embody their founding principles, proving their enduring significance as institutions that truly empower and uplift the Black community. The challenges they face are often, I think, a reflection of the larger societal landscape they operate within. And their efforts to adapt, to self-correct, demonstrate a commitment to their original purpose, even as they contend with the realities of scale and public perception in the 21st century.
And to conclude my view, despite their undeniable, their critical historical contributions, which we both acknowledge, the concerns are real. The escalating costs creating class barriers, the public displays of opulence that can overshadow substance, and these persistent internal issues like colorism and hazing, they suggest a measurable drift, a drift towards elitism. And this shift, I argue, potentially compromises their original mission. It raises that difficult question: have they, at least in part, begun to imitate the very white elitist structures they were founded to resist? The evidence we've discussed from the source material points to a real tension, one that for many observers leans towards a concerning deviation from their original vital purpose.
Well, this discussion certainly highlights the multifaceted nature of Black fraternities. There's this dynamic tension, isn't there, between maintaining a prestigious legacy and upholding a foundational purpose. This ongoing dialogue really underscores the importance of critically examining how historical institutions like these adapt, how they evolve within changing societal landscapes. Hopefully, it leaves listeners with a perhaps deeper appreciation for the complex interplay of tradition and contemporary challenges.
Indeed, and there's clearly much more to explore within this rich material. We really invite our listeners to continue exploring these complexities. We'd love for you to reflect on today's debate, maybe leave a comment letting us know if you tend to agree or disagree with the way we've summarized the core tension here. And perhaps tell us where you're listening from. We're always keen to understand our reach and foster this conversation globally. Thank you for joining us on The Debate.